This is Stories from the Trail. I'm Gary Sizer, one of your hosts. Before we get started, I just want to give you guys a quick preview for what we're about to get into. Obviously, this is our first episode ever. We really tried to do a lot with our first one, probably a little bit too much. We have to introduce, you don't know who I am. You don't know who my co-host is. We had to introduce ourselves. We had a guest and a long conversation with them. We told a couple of stories. We had another guest. It just really got out of hand. So we decided to split it into two. So congratulations. Your first episode is a bonus episode, 2 for the price of 1. If you're listening to this on the day it releases, today is Christmas 2017. We're going to drop part 2 on New Year's 2018. If you're listening in the future, go get them both right now. All right, this is Stories from the Trail, a production of Trek.co. And I think that's all I have to say about it for now. Sit back and all will be made clear. Or not. Enjoy. I'll talk you through it. We're actually recording now. We've been recording this whole time.
Yeah, I kind of assumed.
figured,
I mean,
we're just
at any
playing
time that
around.
I have a microphone in front of me and we're on this Hangouts call, I just assume I'm being recorded.
Yeah. So, we recorded our first episode a couple of weeks ago, and it was
We
pretty
did.
good. Yeah, I thought we did all right. I listened to it a couple of times. I wanted to edit, cut out some, like glaring errors, a couple of awkward pauses. Megan farted a couple of times. But
Yeah, normal stuff.
I thought that it needed a little something extra. I think, first of all, we tried to do too much with our first episode.
We did tackle a lot.
We did. We needed to introduce ourselves. So, first of all, someone's listening to this for the first time. They have no idea who we are. And, we did a little bit of intro, but I think we kind of glazed over it. We went a little too quick. I think we need to do some in-depth,
Yeah.
like who we are and why we're doing this. And, people are listening for the first time. This is our chance to convince them to keep listening. Right?
So talking about ourselves.
Well, I don't want to do that though. I want to talk about each other. I think
Okay.
Yeah, I think talking about ourselves is a little, tell us 3 things about yourself and make sure one of them is not true,
It's like a corporate icebreaker.
It's like corporate
Tell us
team
your
building bullshit.
your favorite thing to do and where you're from and what your name is.
Yeah, tell us what's your mother's maiden name and the last 4 digits of your nothing. All right, so we've got
I'm just
this
keeping
show.
this notebook for future reference.
Yeah. So, we've got this show, and I one of the things I want to make clear right away is that it's not host, co-host. It's not like I'm in charge and you're my sidekick. We're not like, I don't know, if I say Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon, is that, you know who I mean?
I don't get many references.
That might be a good place to start.
I mean, I remember Ed McMahon. I remember who he I remember his face, but I never watched that show.
Mm-hmm. Were you alive when that was a show?
No, I wasn't.
Probably not.
I was not alive.
So
most likely, or if I was alive, we didn't have that channel.
Whenever I introduce Megan to someone, this is one of the things that. So Megan's one of those people who, how sometimes when you introduce one of your friends to new people, you kind of have to warn them about something about this person beforehand. Like I've got a friend back home who's a big, loud, smelly, obnoxious loudmouth who knows everything and he's the nicest guy in the world. But before you introduce him to people, you have to be like, look, my friend Carter, there's something you don't quite know what to say. Megan's like that, except not like big, loud, stinky, and opinionated. But Megan comes with
things.
Megan comes with a disclaimer. She was raised by a pack of wolves, and subsequently has had very little contact with. No, not really a pack of wolves. Megan was raised in like deep woods, right? Tell me if I get any of this wrong. Like, hundreds
I
of
mean,
miles away
it's
from
the
civilization.
woods.
Uh, yeah,
We have pavement on our road.
right. You have electricity and running
We
water.
didn't used to though.
Megan was
I
raised
mean, we
without television. Megan was one of those
yeah,
rare people who
mostly.
grew up like playing outside and reading books, and I think you rode horses, didn't you? Like,
No, no.
you didn't
I'm
ride horses.
no horses.
Okay, but you had horses.
No, I'm afraid of horses.
I knew it was something. I knew there was something with horses.
There's something about horses, and it is that I've always wanted to ride a horse, but they intimidate me, and I
Mhm.
don't have experience around them. No, I grew up playing with like sticks.
Another thing you need to know about Megan is that she will get you off topic so damn fast.
I will derail any
For
conversation.
sure. Yeah. So I met
Oops.
Megan. We'll talk about I guess we'll talk about who I am later, but I want to start by talking about my co-host Megan. I met her in a shelter on the Appalachian Trail in I guess it was like May of 2014. I was also, I was making my attempt at the whole thing. She was making her attempt at the whole thing. Started a couple of days ahead of me, right? What was your start date?
Yeah, I started on the 5th.
Okay, so you were May 5th. I was May 10th. Side note to anyone listening who might be planning on hiking the AT, May is a perfectly fine time to start your northbound hike. We'll talk more about
Everyone's
that
going to tell you
later,
it's
but
late. It's not.
it's not. No, it's perfectly fine. But I met Megan randomly at this shelter. She was stopping and getting water from a puddle full of mosquitoes.
Delicious.
And one of the first things I noticed about her was that no, actually, you had already gotten your water. She was sitting on the floor of the shelter by herself, surrounded by piles of stuff sacks and empty stuff sacks and like the things that go in stuff sacks. There was a pack in there somewhere, like your cooking pot rolled off the floor and under the building, and like
Just a lot of bags inside of bags inside of bags that all were unpacked at the same time.
yeah. And if you're just going by appearances alone, my first thought would have been like, oh, this person's in trouble. She's not gonna. This is never gonna work. But I got
I
to
think a
know
lot of
her a
people
little
probably would
bit,
have met me and said, that's never going to happen.
and despite the inability to pick up on like common pop culture references, like, do you know who Wham is? What do you know about the Dukes of Hazzard?
Um, First of all, wham to me is like like something that's in a comic book. Like when someone gets punched or like when they
Mm-hmm.
hit something, wham. That's all I know about wham. Um, and as far as Dukes of Hazards, I know it's a movie. I
Oh.
know that there was an old movie that I've
Mm-hmm.
never seen, and the new movie had Jessica Simpson in it, and I also never saw that either. But it's all about
Oh
short
man,
denim shorts and cowboy boots and
you
cars
got it.
that jump over
That
things.
is exactly, you nailed it. I don't need to change a thing. That's, in fact, that is word for word the synopsis on the back of the Blu-ray. That's
Women in
Dukes of
short
Hazzard.
shorts
Yeah.
and cars that jump over stuff.
Yep. 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 So that's what
But
I'm
I've
talking
never seen
about. Like,
either of them.
yeah. How about Star Wars?
Oh God, I have been meaning to watch all of the Star Wars movies for like 10 years. I've been intending on doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just haven't done it.
Still never seen
But
any of them, right?
it takes place in outer space.
Well,
I got that.
technically, the surface of the desert planet of Tatooine is not outer space, but
That's
technically,
true.
you would need to
Yeah.
traverse outer space to get there. So,
Push up your glasses a little bit. Your,
oh no.
your finger. Right in the middle.
And just note of correction. I said Tatooine by accident. It's Tatooine. I did pick up on that, but see, no clue, no
You're
clue at all what I'm
correcting
talking about.
yourself.
Yes. So that's what I'm
I don't
talking
know
about. Like,
any of that.
yeah, Megan has no idea what any of that stuff means, which is kind of
Mm-mm.
fun, especially when you get around people who are like really into pop culture. And by that I mean like pretty much everyone. So,
Yeah, sounds right.
right. So despite not being able to get common pop culture references, I spent some time hiking with Megan and found out pretty quickly that she's actually it
actually always diminishes the words that follow. She's actually smarter than you would think. So
smarter than you would think. Is that what we're going with?
I'm trying really hard to say nice things about my co-host here, and I'm just doing such a terrible job. Oh man,
she's actually not as dumb as she might initially sound and look.
Well, you did kind of look like you were in a little
so
bit
good
of,
at complimenting me, Gary.
Disarray and danger, and you had like no idea what like Guardians of the Galaxy was, or it's almost.
I know it's a movie.
It's
and
almost
there's a
like
raccoon
you're
in it.
from another planet, Megan.
Well, all I saw was a raccoon on the poster. And I was told that the raccoon talked.
Now that was your first long hike or backpacking trip of any kind, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. It was even like my longest camping type of experience. Like I never car camped for a long period of time.
You car camp?
Like some people go car camping for a week. You know,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like RVing. Sure. They go RVing.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done that.
I've been in one before, but I never like spent an extended period of time traveling and like using one as my base of operations or anything like that.
Right. Well, a lot of people in my area, like people I went to school with, who would go camping up north for a week, and what that meant was they would go and live in a cabin for a week, or they'd go put their RV in an RV park for a week. Normally it wasn't in a tent; it was normally like in an RV, but they called that camping.
Right.
And it's a little different. It's all
it's camping.
Variations on a theme, I guess.
You go to a campground and watch TV there instead.
Right? Yeah.
That's camping.
Yeah, to some people it is.
A rival
camping
show.
Has a very different definition depending on who you're speaking with.
We don't have a rival show, but there's another show I like to listen to, Happy Camper Radio. It's all about that kind of stuff. Like dragging your 600-pound propane griddle to the campground and making pancakes for 40 people at the RV park.
I like to call that luxury camping.
Glamping.
Or glamping.
Yeah.
Yeah, glamping's a term.
It is. We don't
glamping.
Glamp.
You have running water and lights.
No, I don't glamp. That takes money.
Yeah, ditto.
Yeah, I'm
no glamping here. And no glamping growing up either, because again, you need money for it.
For me, glamping is a freshly polished jet boil.
Actually, for me that would be too, because I got rid of my stove at the end of the hike. So
it sounds like a euphemism
like,
for
stove was a luxury.
Terrible. Like what? Why's Travis been in his tent for a half an hour? He's polishing his jet boil.
Just a daily jet boil polishing.
Well, you gotta get the tuna smell out of that thing. Okay, so anybody who's ever been on an extended camping or hiking trip knows that your cooking pot or jet boil will smell like tuna after a couple of days. The first time you put tuna into Knorr pasta in your jet boil, it's ruined forever. Your coffee will smell like tuna, your hot chocolate, all of it. Your tuna will smell like tuna.
Tuna fish, everything.
Oh, God.
I still haven't had tuna since the trail.
Mm-hmm. So,
or peanut butter.
What else am I allowed to say about you? I don't want to reveal too much about your location or true identity because we don't want people tracking us down. But
no stalkers, please.
Yeah, Megan's smart. She's a sharp one. She carries a knife and has a degree.
Carries a knife and has a degree. Yes, I did go to school.
That's right.
Again, not as dumb as originally, or as you think meeting me, I guess.
That's not what I meant.
Maybe. No, that makes me sound really dumb. Like really bad. I swear I'm really fun to hang out with.
So yeah, despite what everyone says, Megan's actually pretty cool.
That's so nice. Most people don't say that about me.
No, they say exactly the opposite.
Not to my face. Probably because they know it would inflate my ego too much. We don't need that.
No, we don't. All right. So how did
I
how
live
did
in
I
New
do?
England.
I mean, other than
That
accidentally insulting you, how did I do?
Oh, you did
Just
great.
introducing Megan. So we'll
I
find
think.
out. It doesn't take. You'll just find out on your own that we both like to talk a lot. So that's good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um,
We talk for hours.
you want to
We
talk
have
about?
talked for hours.
You want to talk about the show? You want to tell?
Do you want me to talk about you?
You know what? I won't stop you. Yes, please.
Well, let me talk about you, Gary. Um, you have a bit more of a public lifestyle than I do, being
Okay.
that you wrote this pretty kick-ass book after hiking the trail.
Thank you.
But maybe should I talk about the first time we met?
If you want, whatever you want to say. Pretend.
So
So pretend that someone's listening to a show that we're the hosts of, and they don't know anything about me.
well, you talked a little bit about when you met me for the first time. I want to talk about when I met you for the first time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there were kids at that shelter, if you remember.
Yeah,
And
a couple of rowdy toddlers.
yeah, toddlers that were about 10 years old and just really, really loud and annoying. Um, neither of us have kids, obviously.
Like shrieking.
So I was very annoyed by that. Gary was also annoyed by it. You almost hiked down the trail and went to the next campsite because of it.
Yeah, it was like an
Remember that?
extra 3/4 of a mile or something, wasn't it? To another spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I knew that you ended up finding a tent site because you were tenting and I was staying in shelters back then.
Mhm.
So you tented a lot, but you found a tent site that was down the way a bit.
Yeah, it wasn't very
And in
far.
the no, but I didn't even know you were there. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I had a lot of bags to look after at that point. And
Mhm.
you know, I drop stuff all the time. So in the morning, I got up and was moving before you.
That's right.
Do you remember that?
I do. Do you remember why?
Very rare occasion when Megan got up and was hiking earlier than Gary.
Yeah, because well, first of all, I had called Katie because I had cell phone reception from that little ridge that I was on top of, but I had just finished dropping a deuce. Like I had literally
I like to
just
jump in
filled
on
in
people right when they're done pooping.
I had just finished filling in the cat hole and like buckling my belt and oh, hey, it's that girl from the shelter last night.
Hey, it's that loud lady saying, "Have a great day," or something. I don't remember what I said, but I remember thinking like, "Oh, you know, he seems like he's really smart. Like he might, I don't know. He might be he just knows too much about this hiking thing. I don't really want to hike with him. He's going to judge me cuz you know, I don't know what I'm doing." And I was like, "You know, I'll just hike away. I'll hike faster than him. I'm a fast hiker. I'll hike away."
I never knew
But
this.
that didn't work out so well
Hmm.
for like a whole month,
Now
3
what?
weeks.
I wasn't. Wait, you tried to hike away from me for 3 weeks? Is that what? That's
No,
not.
just the first time. I was
Oh,
like,
just that
I
day.
can. I'm not gonna hike near him. I'll hike away.
I
I'll
wasn't judgy or though anything like that, was I?
No, no, you weren't. I was just. I think back then I might have been a little bit insecure with my lack of experience
Oh, okay.
and
Pretty much
thinking
everyone
like,
is.
what's that?
Pretty much everyone is at that point.
Oh, yeah, everyone is. But you like really had your shit together. Like you knew what you were doing. You had trialed all your gear. Like my dad tried to get me to go in the backyard and try out my gear before going. And I said, "Nah, it's cool. I'll figure it out.
Figure it out as I go.
I'll play it by ear." I've camped before. I did go on like a few nights. I did some camping like for a few nights, but it wasn't with all of my gear that I was taking. It was with some other stuff, like before some of my what I had ordered had come in or something. So it wasn't with the tent I was going to be using. It was with a different tent. And he was like, "Well, don't you want to practice putting up your tent?" I was like, "Nah, I'll do it once on the deck and I'll figure it out
I
on the
remember
trail."
I remember your tent was really heavy. It was like 4 pounds or something, wasn't it?
It was 4 pounds. It was
Yeah.
a full 4 pounds, and it was a one-person tent. It was an Alps mountaineering tent,
That
and
number
it's labeled as a one-person tent, but it was a 1.5 person to two-person tent when you actually try to put 2 people in there.
I think you had 1.5 people in there at one point too, didn't you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, so I remember. Yeah, I remember your tent being heavy because I remember you told me that, and like, so what Megan's referencing about me, like, quote, having my shit together is I've been doing this for years. This is the AT when I met her was my first long hike, but like I have. I'm actually close to my gear closet right now. I've got like 13 tents.
Oh, it's great. I
Yeah.
love that closet.
And when like, and you told me you had a 4-pound tent, I was like, what? A 4-pound tent on a through hike? That's ridiculous. That's like 4 tents. And I talked to Katie. Katie's my wife, by the way. You'll get to know a lot about her. But I was talking to Katie, like, it was actually the phone call that I had right before you showed up, and I was like, I think I want to loan this girl one of my tents because I want her to make it. And
oh, that's really nice of you.
And Katie said, you let her worry about her own problems. You worry about yours. And then I was like, fine, I will. And I took a shit, and then you showed up. So that's how that morning went.
Tell Katie that despite that, I still love her.
Yeah,
despite the fact that she was going to let me fail.
And you two became really good friends eventually, too.
Oh, yeah. So Gary has some really cool people in his life. He's only friends with cool people. It's a thing, really. I've met a couple of your friends along the way. They're all really awesome. They do amazing things with their spare time. They do amazing things with their careers. And Katie, amazing. Everyone's so friendly. And Katie's sister-in-law, I mean, we could go on and on.
Let's talk about the show a bit. So the name of the show is Stories from the Trail. And so far, you and I have been talking about the Appalachian Trail. And,
right.
We mentioned that this is a production of the Trek.co, which started out as Appalachian Trials. But
there are plenty of trails out there.
Yeah. So I want, even though it's been nothing but AT for the last 20 minutes, I want to make sure, new listeners are aware that we're, when we say the trail, we mean that like not metaphorically, like literally the trail, but not just the trail that Megan and I have done.
Any trail.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be the long ones either, not just, like PCT,
it could be like just
CDT.
that 5 miles that you did one weekend or something.
Here's a question. Is it always a foot trail? Do we want to talk about stuff other than hiking?
No, because excuse me, because a lot of trails are they're horse carriage trails or like they're gravel roads.
Okay. What about?
How about outdoors? I don't know.
Okay. Are we gonna let mountain bikers talk to us?
Depends on the mountain biker.
Okay, all right. I know some cool mountain bikers. So you saw the thing where I said I was going to split the show into 2 shows, right? We do the part with Zach first. So
yes, you heard that right?
No, what'd you say?
I said yes, I did hear that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, see that. I mean, I read it. I didn't hear it. I can hear words, Gary. I can hear text.
Professional podcasters, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we're gonna get paid for this. I'm kidding.
Someday. All right.
Someday.
So we're doing our conversation with Zach first, and then we're gonna provide like a natural break, where, like I'll come on and I'll do
I live off. I'm kidding. I don't actually live off the land. That would be great. But I do live in the middle of the woods in New Hampshire, which is beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, I'm in the middle of the woods in western North Carolina right now. I'm actually in the Pisgah National Forest. And I am in a bunker underground under a mountain. Okay, it's my basement.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful there, though. It really is.
We're pretty lucky. Yeah. So, how else we're lucky is that we have a show. We used to joke about this when we were hiking. Megan and I would roll up into a shelter, and you're going to find out that, we talk a lot. We talk pretty fast, too. And, we used to have a running gag that it was the Megan and Gary show or the Gary and Megan show. And now we actually have the Mary and Gagan show. What the
we could just make it all one word if we tried. Forget the name that we've gone with. Forget Stories from the Trail. We'll make it some weird combination of our names.
So Megan's a storyteller. I'm a storyteller. You wrote for the Trek.co, formerly Appalachian Trials. Yes, we spelled that right. Megan blogged for the site. I did too. We both. Well, I met Zach Davis, the guy who runs the place, at Trail Days the year after I hiked. So you know him, I know him. Zach Davis was the author of a book about hiking the Appalachian Trail, Appalachian Trials, a psychological guide to. I should have this memorized, but I don't. Zach, your subtitle's too long. But Zach has done something else that I find pretty interesting. He's the only person I know who wrote a book about how to hike the PCT before actually doing it. Um, and he recently finished the PCT, and I wonder if he used his own book as a how-to guide. Zach, why don't you come on and say hi?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this rotary phone was going to work or not. But at first, I just want to say that I am very excited to join the Mary and Gagan show.
Oh no, what have we done?
Welcome to the gig.
Yeah, guys, Gary, you're spot on. I co-wrote a book about how to through hike the PCT before I had through hike the PCT.
Now, I've got a question for you about that.
Shoot.
I'm sorry. I didn't read your book, but how did you write a book before doing the PCT?
Yeah, so truth be told, it is an adaptation of Appalachian Trials, which, as Gary mentioned, is a psychological guide to through hiking the AT. Book is it uses the story of through hiking kind of as it's just the venue for basically some basic self-help principles.
Okay.
It could be applied to the principles in Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials could be applied to really any great endeavor in life. And I just incorporated my story from through hiking the Appalachian Trail to use that as a venue to kind of principles. It was my guess and walk the walk. It proved to be correct that the PCT was largely the same. You know, that spending a half year backpacking on one trail is not going to be radically different from another trail. You know, from a psychological standpoint, obviously there's going to be a lot of differences in terms of your gear and logistics, etc. But in terms of getting your head right for the adventure, the principles are largely the same. And the same could be said for, you know, starting a new business, losing a bunch of weight, you know, trying to achieve your relationship goals, etc. So that was my reasoning for writing the book before actually doing the trail. I also co-wrote the book with a friend, Carly Moray, who had hiked the PCT to, you know, I wanted to make sure that I was getting the details of the trail correct, because there are, like I said, some pretty major differences between the two. But as far as the psychological component goes, it's, you know, it's pretty much the same exact thing.
What was your background before you decided to become a full-time dirtbag?
I was doing digital marketing for the few years out of school before I started Appalachian Trials, which is now the Trek.
Yeah, you're big on like lists and streamlining processes.
So maybe your question is touching on the fact of, you know, how did I get into writing books, self-help books?
Yeah, that's it.
You know, truth be told, I don't have a degree in psychology or social work or anything like that. But it is a subject that has always been a passion of mine. When I was in 8th grade, freshman year, somewhere in that range, I weighed 60 pounds more than I do now. So I utilized self-help principles to kind of dig myself out of a rut at an early age, and used it to kind of, you know, maintain momentum. And anytime I am setting major goals in my life, I apply these principles, and the AT was no different.
Well, it is such a big mental game. I mean, I don't think anybody on this call disagrees with that.
No.
It certainly is. You know, the thru hikers on this call can attest that it is mostly mental. After a few weeks and your body has adapted to the physical rigors of the trail, the challenge lies predominantly between your ears.
You're fresh off the
I
trail,
completely agree
right?
with that.
Like how you finished pretty recently, like within the last month or so?
About a month and a half now, but yeah, I finished the PCT on October 20th.
Yeah. How do you feel mentally?
Um, it helps working for yourself. Definitely the first few weeks coming back off of the trail, my average workday was probably in the 3 to 4 hour range. If I had to have jumped back into a normal 9 to 5, I think I would have struggled a lot more. With that extra free time, I was able to get outside a lot more. We had a unseasonably warm November here in Colorado, which made it nice for me to get out on my mountain bike and hike. So, the post-trail depression is obviously very real, and it's actually something I wrote about in both Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials. I'm well aware of it. So I put a lot of emphasis in, learning my lessons from the trail, spending a lot of time outside, getting a lot of exercise.
Did you get that after the AT? The blues?
I did. I
Blues.
think my case was a little bit different because I was also battling West Nile virus. So it's hard to say of my struggles, which was attributed to the post-hike depression and how much of it was just the fact that I was very sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I was in a rough shape after the trail.
How'd you do, Megan? We didn't talk much immediately after our hike.
I had an interesting time. I wouldn't really say that I had the same.
You're getting
Well,
some
I don't want
kind
to
of
say
an
the same
echo
because
there.
everybody's experience is different, but I didn't experience the post-trail depression in the way that I had expected to. So I had expected to be like really upset and wanting to stay, wanting to be outside all the time and wanting to be around trail family. I found myself pretty good with just being alone and creating my own time. But I will say that the struggle of being a post grad, like after college and still needing to find a job, that piece was the hardest for me because I was in that balance of how do I stay home and do everything that I want to do while I'm unemployed, but also I have to look at getting a job because I can't live at my parents' house forever. That was the hard piece, was the reintegration.
I'm curious, did you want to maintain the same career path before and after the trail? Did the trail reveal any changes that you wanted to make?
Actually, one of the reasons I ended up on the trail was a change in career path or a change in mindset. So before going on the trail, before deciding I wanted to go on the trail even, I was thinking, "Oh, I'm going to go to grad school." I was thinking I was gonna go to med school. I was actually gonna go and, "Oh, I wanna be a surgeon. That's what I wanna do. I wanna do medicine." And then at the end of my undergrad career, that dream that I had kind of crumbled, and through no one's fault, but just realizing that what I had thought I wanted, I didn't actually want, and I didn't know what I wanted. So what was I going to do? Well, I was going to run away for 5 months and I was going to go live in the woods. And so when I came out of it, I had very little direction other than I've got this degree. I've got to figure out how to use it so I can pay back my student loans. But at the same time, what I want to do before, I don't want to do now. What the heck am I doing? So it was a lot of and I was supposed to figure that out in the 5 months. Like everyone says, "Oh, it's a great time to
Yeah.
think and do some." I thought a lot. I still didn't figure out what I wanted to do when I came back.
Yeah, they say if you don't know, if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up before you hike, it's not going to fix you. It's, the same
No.
problems and the same questions you have when you start, they're going to be there when you get back.
Yeah,
Unless,
all of those
one
things
of
are
those
still gonna be there.
problems is like an extra 50 pounds or, to be able to say, I've never had giardia. Trail will cure you of that pretty fast. So
I did consider the other day, and this is kind of the twisted mind of the thru hiker. I was realizing I hadn't really been like exercising as much as I would like to be doing these days. And honestly, my first thought was, I was looking through pictures too and seeing my hiking pictures, and I was like, my first thought was, I should just go do another thru hike, as if that was going to be the best way for me to get in shape and maintain my career. Was oh, I should just go on another through hike. But that's
simply
way too easy.
Yeah.
too easy. That's just too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy. Also, I should say very common. I see a lot of people,
Yeah.
The lifestyle of a through hike is just so much more appealing than anything that they've experienced prior. It becomes very addictive. I think
Yeah. It is a
the hard part
lifestyle
is just having
change.
fun.
It's not like a thing that you do. You don't like you train for a marathon and then you go do the marathon and it's over. It becomes part of your life. Your whole daily routine changes. The way you think changes. I mean, you kind of become a different person while you're out there. Even the fact that we say
absolutely.
out there, to refer to, exactly what I mean. And when you are out there, you talk about, I'm making air quotes here, the real world. It's almost like, two separate parallel existences and you pass between them or something. But
it's tough because
it hit me pretty hard.
You come back after the trail a changed person, and sometimes it means you're a square peg going back into a round hole.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a really fine line to walk. I've figured it out now after how many years has it been?
2014. So
3
years. Yep.
3 years. So I figured it out at this point how to kind of merge my two separate lives and allow it to, allow them to coexist within myself as one being, if you will. But it is kind of like this. It sometimes just feels like I have a secret. Like when I'm walking around at work or something and I have a conversation with someone, or just hiking comes up in my mind in general, and I'm wearing my professional work clothes and talking about, I don't know, things that exist in corporate America, that there's a part of me that just feels like it's just hiding. Like there's another piece of me. There's the Appalachian Trail version of me, the hiker version of me.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like hiding inside. And it's kind of like, almost feels like it's a dirty secret because I look at something dropped on the floor. I'm like, I'd probably eat that off the floor. And
Megan, that's an envelope. Spit that out.
Like,
Don't
it's
eat
one
the
of those things.
erasers.
It's like, it would be really weird if I told someone the story, like the times that I've bathed in a public bathroom, or like any of those stories that might pop into my head on a daily basis. I can't just say those out loud because then people look at me and go, who are you and why are you dressed like this? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that you wrestle with, like wrestling with getting back into society.
Oh, very good segue.
Ooh, I love this segue.
So, Zach, you didn't actually wrestle a mountain lion, did you? Or how'd that all play out?
I actually did, and I killed a grizzly bear on this trail with nothing but dental floss too.
What was the grizzly doing with dental floss?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hey, dental hygiene is important on the trail.
That's right.
Yeah. Especially if you need to fight a tiger. So what I'm referring to is, so I mentioned that Zach is the editor-in-chief of thetrek.co, which used to be Appalachian Trials, and I read there too, and I saw this story a few days ago that Zach wrote. He and Jabba, aka the Hiking Viking, hiked together, and they really did have a mountain lion encounter out there, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And I purposely skimmed the article because I want to get the details from the man himself. What the hell happened out there?
Yeah. Well, to spare you the more verbose version of the story, if you do want to read it, it is on the website. I'll cut to the meat of it. So for the length of the day, we were hiking separate from each other, probably a few miles spaced apart. We had just stayed the previous night in the town of Big Bear, gotten dropped off, and I was hiking at a pace because I wanted to get cell service because the Cubs were playing in, I think it was game 4 of the NLDS, which is the first round of the playoffs. Cubs fan, so I was hiking my ass off. We can swear, right?
Yeah,
we can now.
we got to set a precedent sooner or later. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
So basically I was on my horse for the first part of the day to get to a place where I could get service by first pitch. I did that. And then once the game started, I had too much nervous energy to pace down or really even take any breaks. I have an unhealthy relationship with my sporting team. So it's unless you have some sort of psychotic obsession with your teams, you might not be able to empathize. I was probably maintaining about a 3.5 mile per hour average.
Yeah,
for the
I live with a
first.
rabid hockey fan, so
Okay,
I know what that's like.
That's right. I remember that. You wanted to get to, what was it, the Penguins game
You got it.
during Trail Days?
Yeah,
Is that right?
you got it exactly. Yeah, Katie had to see the
I
playoffs.
didn't drink away all my memory. All right. So yeah, needless to say, at the point I'm about 20 miles into the day, at the end of the Cubs game, I'm a few miles ahead of Java. He texted me with a little bit of service that we had left on the day to see where I was. I told him. He figured out that I was way ahead of him, so he ended up running to catch up with me. It was right at about sunset, probably 20 minutes after that he actually caught up with me. At that point, I had just gotten water. He was totally bone dry. But he decided, instead of getting water at the water source that I had just pulled water from, which was about a quarter of a mile off the trail, he would just get water at the next source. He stops to get water. I go about 100 yards ahead, and then I see it. I see two floating green eyes looking back at me directly on trail. It was probably about 2 feet off the ground. My first instinct was that this was a deer. The majority of the animals that you see out on the PCT at night are that it's going to be a deer. But still, I was hesitant. And then this animal started walking toward me. At this moment, obviously, it's not a deer, because a fawn is either going to stay put, or an adult deer is just going to run in the opposite direction. Instantly, as it came and was able to light the rest of its body, I could see that this was a lion. Its head was tucked beneath its front shoulders, and it was moving methodically and slowly directly at me on trail.
How far away?
It was probably about 30 yards away. And at this point, I had never had a mountain lion interaction in my life, I should say. So, I
had you
hadn't
thought
been
about
primed
it?
on
Is that something you prepare for, or?
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone remembers their first black bear encounter, and it's probably the most terrifying experience. That the same is true with mountain lions, and probably even worse for me, just because I had it built up in my head that, if mountain lion, that there's a greater chance that something's going to go poorly. My assumption was that, there was a very real chance of an attack about to happen.
Yeah.
I turned my head to the side, knowing that Jabba's not too far behind me. He's collecting water, and I kind of yell out for him. I go, "Jabba!" He didn't hear me. He didn't respond. And at that point, the lion started running directly at me.
God damn.
This is when my body just, was overtaken completely with adrenaline. My life flashed before my eyes. I had a very real fight or flight response.
What'd you think?
Response, and without, instinctually, my response was to turn my head to the side. I knew better than to run away. I live with cats. I know they have a chase instinct, and I unleashed a sound louder than anything that has ever come out of me, starting at my balls. And sorry for going there. Moving up my body, this deepest, most primal sound that I've ever unleashed came out of me, screaming again, just to try to get Jabba's attention, because I thought that shit was about to hit the fan, and I wanted strength in numbers. And as that sound escaped me, the lion then changed course and ran down into the valley. And when I say run, it wasn't like if I jangle like a mason jar full of coins at my cat, it'll run as fast as can be in the opposite direction.
Right.
This thing was like, all right, I guess this is not interesting to me anymore. It kind of ran off I wish it had moved at a much more fast pace. yeah, so that was the mountain lion encounter.
So
and
Jabba
mountain lion
finally, did he hear
friends-
you?
Say that again.
Did Jabba hear you when you
He
bellowed?
did hear me. Yeah, he responded by saying, "Are you okay?" And like
Yeah.
I still had so much adrenaline pumping through my system. I didn't know what to say because like the lion had run off. I wasn't sure if it was just going to attack me at a different angle at this point.
Right.
So I
Is that something
responded by
they're
saying,
known for? Are they known
"No."
for coming back?
The more I learn about its behavior, I realized it probably wasn't attacking me. It was most likely just curious.
Huh.
Because it's not common that they attack you head on. So it doesn't seem like
That's
that
true.
was
Don't they normally like go for your neck or like the back? Like they pounce from above. Isn't that their normal MO?
right. Yeah, and had I known that at the time, I maybe been able to keep my cool a little bit better. But
I mean, I know that I wouldn't have been able to keep my cool. Like
I know
You
you're
can.
not supposed to run, but I honestly probably would have. Like, I don't know how you maintain any composure in that situation. I've got adrenaline just listening to it.
Yeah, I consider myself fortunate that I didn't run because, like I said, that this wasn't like a primed response. Like, before I left for the PCT, we were heading out into some pretty gnarly snow in the Cascades. So obviously, like I practiced self-arresting, and I wanted to practice to the extent that it was second nature.
Mhm.
But something like this was not something that I had prepared for in any way. So I was just working off of raw instinct, and I consider myself grateful and probably a little bit lucky that it wasn't that it didn't run like you're saying, because that could have ended. Because even if it wasn't hunting me originally, you
Yeah.
trigger the chase instinct by running away. Like
is
things
now.
could work out a lot differently.
Wow.
I mean, it's the same with black bears. I think we all know because we've all been on the AT. We're always told don't run away from a black bear because it has a tendency to chase things. I mean, that's like rule number 1, right?
That's like rule
Yeah.
3.
Isn't that rule number 1?
I think it's
2?
rule 3.
Number 3?
Yeah.
So it's pretty high up there. But I mean, a black bear isn't I don't think they do as much damage as a mountain lion, but I don't really know the facts on that.
Who would win in a
But
fight?
I
A
mean, who
black
else
bear
who
or a
else
mountain
has a
lion?
response that's like, "Oh, black bear, I'm going to fight it." I mean, I think most people their first encounter are they're scared shitless and they want to turn and go the other way. Who does it?
I was pretty surprised the first time I saw one. I mean, they're bigger and so much quieter than you expect too. Zach,
I think my
is
first
there-
encounter was like far away, so I got to see it. It
sorry.
was like real easy.
Is there a point to having a weapon on you in that situation? Like if you have
Ooh, yeah.
a knife or
In that case, my weapon was Jabba.
Yeah. That's why you were calling him.
The few people out there that don't know who the real hiking Viking is, sniper in the Marines. He's covered in tattoos. Like even after a through hike, still weighs 180 plus pounds, despite being shorter than I am
After
at
a
like
through
5.
hike.
built like a tree trunk,
Yeah,
Wow.
he's a thick guy.
built
So
like a scratching post. Here, you fight this.
yeah, it's interesting to think if I would have reacted differently had I not known that he was behind me, because there was definitely some sort of sense of security knowing that, like, even if it was about to be an attack, like he could have gotten there quick enough that there was still some shred of life left in me.
That's a terrifying thought.
Do you carry a whistle?
Pretty dark. Huh?
Yeah, it's
I hope
kind of
my mom
dark.
Zach,
Oh,
do
Gary,
you
you
hike?
asked about a whistle?
Yeah, do you hike with a whistle, Zach?
Got the Gossamer gear Gorilla, which has the whistle and the sternum strap, but
Nice.
I don't think I would think to use that.
This week's episode is brought to you by the Gossamer gear. No, I'm just kidding. Brought to you by the
Is
guy
that
who
how we get
wrestles
sponsors?
mountain lions. Yeah. Well, you know what, Megan? I think we might be done here.
I'm done with you now.
You're dismissed. You may go.